Maybe you're sitting there right now just staring at a massive color-coded spreadsheet in some corporate office,
Yeah.
and you're just quietly dreaming of leaving the corporate grind. Or,
Yeah.
maybe you're already a business owner, right?
Hey, looking to expand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're actively looking for that next big thing to add to your portfolio. And either way, if you're evaluating business models, you are probably hunting for the absolute holy grail of franchise ownership.
Which, almost always comes down to finding a scalable operation with baked-in recurring revenue. I mean, that is the baseline for anyone who wants to actually build wealth rather than just buying themselves another demanding job.
Yeah, buying a job is the ultimate trap. And today, we're doing a deep dive into a business model that claims to have engineered exactly that kind of scalability. We're unpacking Mosquito Squad.
It's a really fascinating one to look at.
It is. We've got a massive stack of franchise disclosure documents, market analyses, and operational blueprints here. And on the surface, you might just see, a pest control company.
Right, just another home service?
Yeah, but we are looking way past that superficial home service label today. We want to unpack the underlying unit economics, the market positioning, and the multi-unit growth potential to see why this specific model is basically a heavyweight in the franchise world.
Because it really operates on a very specific psychological and, frankly, operational frequency. Like when you look at the actual architecture of the business, it doesn't function like traditional pest control at all.
I actually noticed that immediately while going through the operational blueprints. Like, the best analogy I could come up with is a high-retention software subscription.
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah. But instead of paying a monthly fee for, extra cloud storage or a CRM platform, the customer is essentially subscribing to get their backyard back.
I like that.
So our mission today is to figure out if that analogy actually holds up. We really need to pressure test the financial requirements, the support infrastructure that sits behind the curtain, and the psychology of the buyer.
Well, if we want to understand how this scales for an investor, we kind of have to start with the actual service economics. Because Mosquito Squad essentially pioneered this specific category.
Wait, they invented the category?
Yeah, back in 2005. They invented what they call the protective barrier treatment.
The stats on this treatment are what caught my eye first,
Yeah.
honestly. This barrier reduces mosquito populations by up to 95%.
Yep.
And it works continuously for up to 21 days. But let me just put on my skeptical consumer hat for a second here.
Sure, go for it.
If a treatment is aggressive enough to wipe out 95% of a mosquito population, a homeowner is going to immediately worry about their dog, their kids, their garden.
Oh, absolutely. And that is the first major friction point in literally any chemical service business. But Mosquito Squad designed their treatment protocols specifically to neutralize that hesitation.
How so?
Well, the ingredients meet local requirements and they're completely EPA registered. But the real practical selling point, like for the actual homeowner, is the downtime. Kids and pets can go right back out into the yard to play just 30 minutes after the service is completed.
Wow, just 30 minutes. That's barely any disruption.
Exactly.
And according to the service guidelines, they actually train their technicians specifically to avoid treating bloomed plants.
Right.
So they are actively protecting beneficial pollinators, like bees, while specifically targeting the mosquitoes and ticks. And they also commit to a 48-hour service window, weather permitting. But here is where I really need to push back on the business model.
Let's hear it.
Pest control is an incredibly crowded space. You have local independents, national conglomerates, hardware store DIY solutions.
The tons of competition, yeah.
Right. And one of the things Mosquito Squad heavily advertises is a 100% satisfaction guarantee without requiring any restrictive customer contracts.
Yep, no contracts.
If I'm stepping out of a secure corporate job to invest in a franchise, no contracts sounds utterly terrifying. How does a franchise actually retain a reliable client base? Aren't you just on a perpetual hamster wheel, spending marketing dollars to chase new leads every single month?
That assumption makes total sense if you're looking at it through the lens of traditional contracting. But the lack of a legally binding contract is a calculated feature.
Really? How is that a feature?
It leans entirely on the biological reality of the mosquito and that 21-day treatment cycle.
Okay, but a lot can happen in 21 days. Like, what if it just downpours on day 3? Does the biological clock reset? Doesn't the customer just get frustrated and cancel the whole service?
See, that is exactly why the 100% satisfaction guarantee exists. If a heavy rain washes out a treatment early or the customer just isn't happy for literally any reason, They call within 14 days and the franchise retreats the yard for free.
For free?
Totally free. Because you are entirely removing the friction of that initial sale. I mean, think about it. If you tell a homeowner, hey, sign this 12-month binding agreement before we spray your yard, you create immediate hesitation.
Yeah, they want to shop around, talk to their spouse.
Exactly. But if you say, look, no contracts, 100% guarantee, and if it fails, we fix it for free, you secure the customer right then and there.
So you're basically shifting all the risk away from the consumer and putting it heavily on the franchisee's operations.
Which forces the franchisee to operate at an incredibly high level of quality. And when the quality is there, that 21-day cycle acts as a natural, biological, recurring billing mechanism.
That's fascinating.
Right. The customer doesn't need a piece of paper telling them to renew. The environment reminds them. As soon as that barrier naturally fades around day 21, the mosquitoes return, and the customer suddenly realizes the profound difference the service made.
Ah, I see. They want the technician back immediately.
Exactly. Mosquito Squad has actually completed over 2 million successful treatments and protected more than 300,000 families since 2005.
That's a massive data set.
It is. And that sheer volume of data proves a really crucial business principle. Highly effective, high-quality service is exponentially stickier than a paper contract. You don't need to lock them in. They lock themselves in because they value the outcome.
Right, because if the biological clock of a mosquito is basically doing your retention work for you, your lifetime customer value fundamentally changes.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to the actual unit economics and the diversified revenue streams. Because stepping into this system requires capital, and I really want to look closely at what that capital actually buys you.
Yeah, let's talk numbers. The financial barrier to entry actually sits in a very strategic sweet spot for corporate professionals. The total initial investment range is between $164,530 and $217,125.
Okay, so a decent chunk, but manageable.
Right. And to qualify, you need a $100,000 net worth and $50,000 in liquid cash.
So looking at this $50,000 liquid requirement, my immediate assumption is that it covers, a truck lease, some initial chemical inventory, and maybe a localized digital ad spend to get the phone ringing.
That's pretty much the starting block, yeah.
But we're talking about multi-unit, semi-absentee growth strategies here. You can't build an empire just spraying mosquitoes out of one truck. How does that initial capital outlay actually translate into scalable revenue?
It translates into scale because of the tiered revenue ecosystem they've engineered. They don't just sell one service. They sell a progression of solutions designed to capture basically every demographic in a given territory.
Ah, okay. The blueprints do detail these multiple tiers, like you have the Barrier Treatment Plus, which targets mosquitoes and ticks. That is clearly the entry-level acquisition tool.
Exactly, that gets you in the door.
But then they offer the Squad Yard Defender, which adds outdoor ants, spiders, and over 15 other crawling, biting, and stinging yard pests.
Right.
And finally, they have the complete home and yard package, which is a year-round, indoor and outdoor solution targeting over 40 different pests.
And that tiered structure right there is the engine of the franchisee's profitability.
It honestly reminds me of a software land and expand model.
Oh, how so?
Think about freemium or entry-level software. You get the customer in the door with a basic, low-friction product, which in this case is the basic mosquito barrier. They buy in because the cost is reasonable and, like you said, there's no contract.
Yeah, low barrier to entry.
But once you have their credit card on file and they trust your technician showing up on time, upselling them becomes almost effortless. When they complain about ants on the patio later in the summer, you don't have to spend a single dime on new marketing to acquire them.
Nope, zero acquisition cost.
You just upgrade them to the Yard Defender tier.
That's exactly it. You've already paid the customer acquisition cost, or CAC. Every dollar of revenue you stack on top of that initial acquisition drops straight to your bottom line, drastically increasing the customer lifetime value.
That makes perfect sense.
And they don't even stop at residential upselling. They capture niche markets too. Like, they offer natural treatment options using essential oils that last 14 days, specifically for the heavily organic-focused consumer.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. They do special event sprays for weddings or corporate outdoor parties. And crucially, they deploy commercial services.
Okay, explain the impact of the commercial services. Because, a wedding spray sounds like a nice one-off weekend bonus, but a commercial contract sounds like a different beast entirely.
Oh, it is. Commercial services. So Think restaurants with outdoor dining patios, golf courses, massive event spaces, municipal parks. These are the accounts that truly anchor your cash flow.
Because of the skies.
Exactly. A residential customer might pay for a quarter-acre yard. A golf course is a massive, high-ticket, recurring contract. And this brings us to the concept of route density, which is basically the lifeblood of any home service business.
I am really glad you brought up route density, because a lot of people just looking at spreadsheets don't account for windshield time.
Oh, windshield time is brutal.
If a technician has to drive 20 minutes between houses, you're paying them an hourly wage to just sit in traffic, burning fuel, while the truck generates zero revenue.
Windshield time kills margins. It really does. The goal of a franchisee is to build incredibly dense routes. You want your technician treating 5 houses on the exact same street, then hitting the restaurant down the block, then treating the local park.
Right.
The tiered packages and commercial services allow a franchisee to maximize the revenue pulled from a really tight geographic radius. You aren't driving across town to find new money, you're extracting way more value from the route you already run.
And the ongoing fees to operate within this ecosystem are an 8 to 10% royalty with an ad royalty of $150 to $450 a month, all operating on a renewable 10-year franchise agreement term.
Which is pretty standard, but the real question an investor needs to ask is, what kind of corporate infrastructure is that royalty actually funding?
Right, let's put ourselves in the shoes of the listener right now.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm a corporate executive making an exit. I know how to read a P&L. I know how to hire general managers and hold them accountable. But I do not know the first thing about algorithmic truck routing, or mixing EPA-registered botanical treatments, or running localized SEO campaigns for pest control.
Yeah, most wouldn't.
So is the safety net really there to catch a buyer who has business acumen, but literally zero pest control experience?
And see, that is the dividing line between buying a high-paying job and investing in a scalable business. To answer that, we really have to look at the sheer scale of the corporate entity.
Okay, let's look at the numbers.
Mosquito Squad currently has 239 units operating across 36 states, and they've even expanded internationally into Kenya and Indonesia.
Yeah, the documents show they are still actively seeking new units across a massive white space, too. States like California, Colorado, Georgia, Illinois, Maryland, Texas, and several others.
It's a huge footprint.
So the growth trajectory is still very active. But who is actually managing the chaos of 239 separate units?
Well, the support metric that matters most here is the ratio of corporate staff to franchisees. Mosquito Squad currently operates with 125 headquarters employees.
Wait, let me just do that math. 125 corporate employees supporting 239 units.
Yep.
That is essentially one corporate support staff member for every 2 franchise units.
It is a staggering level of overhead for a franchisor to maintain. It means franchisees are receiving heavy, truly individualized support.
That's rare.
Very rare. You are not submitting a help ticket to some anonymous 1-800 number and hoping someone calls you back in 3 days. You have dedicated operational coaches. And this leads to the ultimate operational moat. Mosquito Squad is backed by the Authority Brands family.
Authority Brands is massive in the home services sector. But let's ground that in reality for a second. What does being under the Authority Brands umbrella actually do for the franchisee on, say, a random Tuesday morning when a truck breaks down or a technician calls in sick?
It means you are not operating like a stressed-out local mom-and-pop shop. A local independent competitor is usually the owner-operator spraying the yards themselves while trying to answer customer phone calls on their cell phone between stops.
Right, juggling everything.
Well, when you buy into Mosquito Squad, you're tapping into enterprise-level operational systems.
Systems that a standalone business could basically never afford to build from scratch.
Never. Consider the dispatch technology alone. 10 years ago, a manager would sit in front of a whiteboard with a map and a highlighter, trying to figure out the most efficient way to route 5 trucks.
A total nightmare.
Right. The software provided by Authority Brands handles algorithmic clustering. It automatically groups treatments by zip code, factors in local traffic patterns, and routes the technician dynamically to minimize that windshield time we talked about earlier.
So the executive owner isn't playing a game of geographical Tetris every morning. They're basically just looking at a dashboard.
Exactly. They look at the dashboard, manage the KPIs, and let the software handle the granular friction. Plus, the enterprise marketing team provides the digital playbook and the creative assets.
That takes a lot off your plate.
And the national call center support can even handle customer overflow so you never miss a lead just because your local office was on another line.
Wow. That completely reframes the entire investment. You aren't actually buying a pest control route. You are buying an enterprise-grade operational software system that just happens to deliver pest control as its end product.
Exactly. And this infrastructure is precisely what allows semi-absentee investors to thrive here. Your role is executive management.
Right.
You are managing your general managers, optimizing the commercial sales pipeline, and driving high-level growth. You utilize the corporate safety net to handle all the operational weeds.
Which is how you actually scale.
Right. And because that blueprint is already stress-tested across hundreds of locations, scaling into multi-unit ownership happens much faster and with far less friction.
Well, we have covered a lot of ground today. We dissected the 21-day service cycle that replaces legally binding contracts with natural, biological recurring revenue.
Yep.
We explored the 50K liquid cash entry point and how that land and expand tiered service model drives up the lifetime value of every customer without, ballooning acquisition costs.
Right.
And we looked under the hood at that 125-person corporate team and the Authority brand's dispatch technology that turns a home service business into a true executive management play.
And if we pull all these mechanics together, it really reveals a fascinating shift in consumer psychology. And honestly, I think this is the most critical takeaway for anyone evaluating the model.
Yeah. Okay.
It basically comes down to the difference between a luxury and a utility.
The psychological moat of the business.
Exactly. Think about how a homeowner approaches their budget. Landscaping, pool cleaning, house washing, these are often viewed as luxuries. They are nice to have, but if the economy tightens, they are the first line items to get cut.
Sure, you can mow your own lawn if you have to.
Right. But fixing a burst pipe or keeping the electricity on, however, is a utility. It is non-negotiable.
So where does backyard pest control fall on that spectrum?
Well, before a family hires Mosquito Squad, they almost always view the service as a luxury. It's just an extra expense to keep the bugs away.
Okay.
But once that family actually experiences the outcome, like when they realize their kids can play outside at dusk without getting covered in bites, when they can host a neighborhood barbecue without lighting citronella candles and handing out sticky cans of bug spray, an invisible psychological line is crossed.
It stops being a luxury and becomes a baseline expectation for how they live in their home.
It becomes a utility. It becomes as essential to their summer operating budget as their water bill or their internet connection.
Wow.
Because once a consumer experiences a bug-free environment, they simply refuse to go back to swatting mosquitoes on their own patio. I mean, you cannot put a price on actually using the property you pay a mortgage on.
That's a really powerful point.
That shift in the consumer's mind, going from luxury to utility, is arguably the strongest retention tool a business can possibly have.
It really is the ultimate subscription model. The product works so well that the customer's own standard of living forces them to keep paying for it. Think